Welcome to the new video. I must say something about the group, the Sun and Moon group. I feel the leader of our group, the moderator Karen, needs to be acknowledged. And I will say, to do that, I will say that Karen is loyal while unknowing of the essence. Or this is how it has been. Maybe recently things might have changed, and I seek to provide that formal introduction. But she has been loyal for probably her whole life of essence, consciousness, while unknowing of it, which is the case for many people. And I seek to create that rally point where this is the place. This is the place. And all may come for this purpose, that they may find a unity with the ones that are embracing consciousness. And so Karen, you're a wonderful, wonderful human being, and I love you, really. Because it takes some, you have some courage. You've got a good grip on consciousness to be able to not only be inspired to have our little group, our family, get-togethers, as it were, and to moderate as well. And you do this comprehensively. And reality, I believe, that for someone that can operate like that and achieve that for other people, and volunteering yourself for the betterment of others' experiences. This is absolutely of the values of consciousness. This is very nice, and I must acknowledge that you're. It's a great joy to be involved, just for that, to be associated with that. It's marvellous. And so the latest group, which was just yesterday, it's taken me a bit to get my head around some of the things that came out, and I think an esteemed gentleman in the Netherlands was, this has been freaking me out since we did the live show. I've said there that it's anxiety at the quantum level, the political aspirations of anxiety, and how it influences thinking, how it governs thought. It governs the conceptualization of reality. And as a group, we all get together, and it has its new iteration where the political aspirations of anxiety in the group setting, it's another level of beliefs, right? And so it was said there that that we say we hear no 148,000 times before we're 18 years old. And I thought, ho hum, no, not me, man. Like, both my parents were non-communicative, communication averse, and so I would have probably been told no about 6 times by the time I was 18. In fact, I'd left home before that. I bailed, man. Just after school finished, actually, just but then it was said that actually we say no. We as thought when we say no to ourselves, and that's absolutely valid. And so while I've got this contention, this message from the universe, of generally how the belief that anxiety is virtuous has governed civilization, it all comes from like the individual and this group of individuals, right? And so of course it's probably more times than that, and so even though this is a very high quality summation of the inherent factors in the message, I had to have someone else remind me of it. And so that was quite wonderful. That was quite remarkable. I think what it did is it was, while I had been focused on these critical elements of the experience of the character of consciousness being controlled by anxieties, and how that relationship actually exists, right, which is the message of the revelation of that laws. It is vastly more the communication of thought in the mind than what is spoken, actually. We do a hell of a lot more thinking than we do speaking. And as a child, it would be interesting to see, like Formula 1 telemetry, right, on a person's brain, the amount they say versus the amount they're thinking, right? That would be quite interesting. Brain activity versus expression. And there's something, and that's an observational thing. I mean, because that's what's going on all the time. Brain activity versus thinking. Okay. And we say brain activity, but we're talking about function of consciousness, actually. And so it was great. It was great. I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed that I have this to say. I have this message that you have to know, that the world has to know, because it's deemed time that this way of civilization is to be put to an end. And now the message contains a means to live a different way. And it's something that everyone can embrace, really. We just take that small change from the way we used to do things and have a whole different way of existing. And this is entirely relevant, man, because here's the things that are going on that I see are a problem, right? That are changing in a negative fashion how traditional society in the West has existed. There are now a lot more people than there used to be. Back when the main economic system was created, right, which is probably 1920 to 1955, all right, in that period of time, these big conceptual features came into existence that the big mechanisms of the economy, right? And so that requires this equation. They work with this equation, the economic equation, and so this equation, there were certain factors involved in the equation, certain values, right? And this is entirely according to what the people do. Okay. So, and it went along amazingly, and there was a lot of prosperity in the West, and life was great, but now it's 2000, almost 2020. Okay, this is 70 years after the central banking system had its public face installed. I'll put it like that. And so now we can say there's a couple of things that are different, right? One is there's way more people around than there ever was. There's just heaps of people around, and I've heard there that they think that there are now more people alive on Earth today than have ever died. Okay, that's something. That's a pretty miraculous statement, man. And so that's one factor, and I think the other factor is that people in the West, the silent majority, right, that create all the wealth, they own everything they aspire to, and this is largely due to the way that the West is taught, and the values that the West are taught as children to not exceed a lower middle class experience. Okay. And so they own everything they want. And oops, that means they've stopped buying stuff. They're already owning everything they want, and they've stopped buying stuff. Okay. And in another instance, like cars are much, much more expensive than they ever were. And so buying a new car has never been more difficult than now. Because the other factors involved is the labour market's been crashed by inviting all of the foreigners into the West, and so the pay, the earning capabilities of people has dropped, and as we all would understand, how we feel about our community, there's not such a happy face on that anymore, right? Everyone's kind of a bit worried, And I mean, part of that is because they continually foist a perspective on the public through the media about how things are going. And that's a double-edged sword, that one, because in one instance they're saying this to us to subdue the emotional state, because I think that a facet of what they do is they drive the public full of they want to have the public full of anxieties, because people that have anxieties generally need more emotional crutches, and so they spend more money, and so the people thing is huge, how it's influenced culture in the West. Okay. You've got disturbance of the relationship to the community, disturbing this perception of culture, changing culture. You've got the materialism thing, right, of things. How do we express our consciousness? Because we've done that all along. We've expressed our consciousness by what we have. They say you wear your heart on your sleeve. Well, there's a massive difference between driving a Prius and a supercharged small block Chevy Camaro, or Harley Davidson, or GSX R1000, right? Like I used to have. And so how the value of things when it comes to expressing consciousness has changed, because that disturbance that disturbance generally has the effect we need a new means to express ourselves, you know, because it's been brought into disrepute, you know. These ways we've relied on for a long time, they now seem like it's not enough. And I mean, the new generation will think that invariably, automatically, because they seek to you know, develop their own identity, and so they can't use these old means to do that, because that's someone else's identity, you know. And that's why youth, the young people, they've all embraced the Japanese car thing, the boy racer thing, as it's called. It's because of that. They need to have their own identity, and so they've embraced the car culture thing. And I mean, for my expression, it's scratch building vehicles, right? Which I've done a few of. I've done a lot of things like that, and my trike now, which I haven't fucking touched since this revelation came to me. It's about 50% finished, but that's where I'm at with how I can express where my consciousness is by scratch building this vehicle, and that's got no end, man. That's got no end to scratch build technology. That is the art. That is an art, man. It's just a fabulous art to do that, and the joy not only in constructing something like that, but when other people see it, people know immediately, like the people that have seen my trike, right, they've been pretty gobsmacked at how it looks and how different it is from normal, and how you know, it engages the consciousness in others, because how good a vehicle of expression is this creation for them. That's the instantaneous thing that's comes to mind in others when they first see that you know, the new thing, right? And so I've had, you know, it took 300 hours to build the chassis, and I'm entirely, you know, I enjoyed every second of it. It's like, and I really have to get my butt into gear and finish it. Anyway, and so this business of needing new headspace. That is, this business of needing new headspace, and I can easily perceive that the silent majority in the West has got to end up going on strike because of this lack of headspace, and there'll be a revolt. There'll be a revolt. It won't be any kind of conflict thing, but they'll just start being very anti a number of things, right? And well, you know, it won't be a conflict thing, but it will be a blunt instrument thing, because there's no means to articulate how they feel, actually, because the realms of the experience does not involve the admission that consciousness is real. You know, you can only explain things according to the first two laws, from within the first two laws. You cannot exceed the political boundaries of the first two laws, or so you would believe. But as I say, this message is about how that is actually completely imaginary, and it is consciousness that is reality. And so to give people more headspace, this is what I want to do. This is the purpose of the message. Well, one of the purposes of the message is to give the human race more headspace, and so they feel they have a future. They feel there is a path to achieving a more quality kind of experience for consciousness. And so while the big system of control is in there, the political and the financial, right, and spiritual, really, because religion owns the subject of spirituality, even though you have it, you're watching this video in your house there, and and you have spirituality because you're exercising your spirituality because you're interested in hearing something new, and here you are watching me tell you something new that nobody even knew, and now you know. And so that's a massive problem for this big system and this equation they use, according to their aspiration. This big problem that the equation is not working anymore. I mean, the equation stopped working, really. The evidence that the equation the system uses had stopped working is when they started quantitative easing. Okay, and that was 20 years ago now. And they did that for a solid, like, they're probably still doing it. They probably are still doing it. Because that's the only way to keep the machine running. It's on life support. Quantitative easing is life support for a system that's not fit for purpose and actually doesn't work because the equation won't work. And as I've disclosed, there's various factors where the equation's not working because the public's behaviour has changed. And the public's behaviour has changed because of the measures they've had, the measures they've inflicted on societies to keep their equation working. And it's just got out of balance, and it won't work. It won't work. I mean, there's the equation is now, it's basically. See, this is the thing of it. This is why the revelation of the 8 laws is an amnesty, because the behaviour of the public is changing, and the system absolutely needs means to change the equation to suit that. So instead of controlling society, they've got to have a way where they can create a new equation according to the new facets in the human experience that is the silent majority. And so this revelation of the 8 laws is that it's an exit strategy, because by virtue of this, they can design a system that suits that, right? And I think they should. They could embrace it as an exit strategy and a means to formulate a new way of doing things, because those two things alone, the more people, there's that many more people around, and our spending practices have changed quite dramatically, and so the industry thing is completely different now, and so then you've got the situation of what part of this equation does the financial system use that is actually about the establishment's political aspiration? What component of the equation the system uses is purely about the political aspiration of the group that is behind the system, right? And so that's changing as well. And so they need an exit strategy, because they can't have a war. See, war, talking about these sorts of things now is so different to what they were talking about back in the 50s, okay, which is when the configuration of the equation was put in place. And see, now a lot of average citizens has an understanding in depth enough to equal them in knowledge of equations, of being able to handle thinking about a multifaceted equation. We're much more educated than we ever were, and so. See, they need an exit strategy, man, like you wouldn't believe. And so this is the revelation of the 8 laws. It is an amnesty. You know, the relationship won't ever change. Someone is going to be in charge of the system, and everyone else is going to enjoy living in a world that provides a lot of freedom because we have a system. We have a big memorandum of understanding. That's really what the financial system is. It's a memorandum of understanding of how we all can work together, and we all have a kind of a level playing field, and which is what it is, what it provides actually. And they might get this big kick out of being in control and like, well, bloody duh. But you know, how many of these elite people have a weekend like a lower middle class outfit where they get all the booze and they have a barbecue and they go fishing together and swimming and then they all have a late night drink after going to see a rugby game that some of the young fellas have been in, and none of them do that. And I'm saying, I reckon these elite families out there, they'll all be a bit jealous of that. And I think there was a movie, the Richie Rich movie, where this rich kid tried to hang out with the poor kids. And it's just a different world. And I know this, that the things that the elite probably go through are, they probably pine for such a social circle as the middle class have, and they probably also think in the top end of it that is today the day that they lynch us. Because there's way evidence with the mind that's not able to articulate. There's much evidence and suspicion of evidence and evidence of suspicion that these people are a major problem to how society works. Major problem. And that's, I mean, one of those ones is how they banned hemp. And so DuPont could make a whole lot of chemicals. So this natural product that had, they say 80 industrial applications, right? Hemp, right? And they banned that in lieu of a whole lot of poisonous as chemicals. And it's generally, it basically, this aspect has governed civilization in that capacity about the industrial world. And this all has a big influence over the perception of who we are, our spirituality, right? Our spirituality, and so it's a lesser nuance of anxiety's influence over courage, actually. Anxiety's influence over consciousness, and so that's why I'd reach out to the elite people. I went on my trip to Wellington, right, and so I should say something about that. I went to Wellington and I was handing out my flyers, and so that was amazing. But I'll make that another video, separate video. So there you go. That's a bit of a spiel. The group was just completely amazing. I got to speak for quite a long time. I'm really enjoying that, and it's a real true thing that that is consciousness. That is the thing. My friend there, Tommy, he's very consciousness. He's a very good example of the state of human nature, because in one instance he's incredibly worried about the dysfunctionality of society, but he kept promoting anxiety as virtuous by only talking about the problems and how much he didn't like the problems. Okay, so this is kind of a replication of anxiety. Now for me, I'm the opposite. I just channel consciousness, and I know that I'm only interested in solutions, and that's why I say what I say. And that's why I've got into a quite detailed understanding of it, because that's the character of consciousness. Consciousness has a detailed understanding of it, right? And so that's the thing of it. And I think it's to some joy that people would find someone can, speak in a detailed way about consciousness. And this goes down to how I said in the group, I think everyone grows up, and as they grow up, when they start to talk, and in the years following when they start to talk, they form some questions in their mind because they see this environment they live in. There are certain things that are not in the interest of consciousness, that are the law. And why is this? Why is this? And it's these secret questions of consciousness that I seek to attend to. And that is generally what the message is. It is an answer to the questions of consciousness, of things that are not of consciousness. And this is the thing, right? And this must be, this is the purpose of the message, right? And so it's quite something. So, because consciousness communicates at the political optics level, okay? And so that I can provide a voice that shows that I'm entirely channeling consciousness and an advocate for consciousness. And this is at the political optics level. This is really wonderful and the best thing ever. If they've had a long-standing history of being ambushed by anxieties, either in their own mind or people around them, getting ambushed from people around them, which is what causes a lot of problems in the world. And because the common conventional wisdom is that anxiety is virtuous, nobody realises that's happening. And so this is part of the qualification that proves that is happening, and this is the effect of it, and this is the effect of the effect on the effect, and so that's it for that, man. It's like, so someone saying something about it is real useful for once, is what I'm saying, and that's the message. That's why the message has been sent, and so I'm having a great time. Because a lot of the time people attend to problems by promoting anxiety as virtuous first, which is a vote of confidence in the cause of the problem. And so now that there's a qualification, there's a means to actually articulate the problem by not using that, not doing that. We can articulate the problem with consciousness, from the consciousness perspective, and with the articulation of consciousness, according to the dynamices of consciousness. And this is great. This is what's needed, man. And so I think once it's common knowledge, what this message is common knowledge, then many negative outcomes will be stopped. Many negative outcomes will be stopped. Because all of youth only have the emotional landscape. They have the emotional landscape, they have their aspirations, and that's all they have. They haven't worked, they haven't earned money, they're not into that yet. And so this is the whole thing to them. Actually, what I'm talking about. This is their whole world. The world of youth, this is all there is. And in this modern age, they get vehicles easily, and so see, my political party, the T-Nil, I think I'm going to make it the law that you can't get a finance agreement until you're 21. Okay, and that means you have to earn money to buy a car and save money to buy a car, and then that generates the values of hard work. you know, this is the true thing. I mean, it's the fact of life. You've got to have a lot of money to buy something expensive, right? And so the reality is you have to work to get that. And I'll augment that by providing around the country once a year. Go around the country for the car thing. Is give young guys an experience with a nice car to keep their mind on the job that the older generation does acknowledge they exist, and support them in that way. And because one of the policy promises is provide a guaranteed path from youth to adulthood. Okay, and so that's the thing of it, man. That's what I'm doing. So anyway, there's some words. The group there on the Sun and Moon show was really great. Tommy's there. Tommy's on the YouTube thumbnail. Tommy's there, like blonde hair. Oh, I think yeah. And so that was completely wonderful. It was like amazing. So again, Karen, thank you. You know, they are the most revered, I promise you, in the consciousness realm. They that are loyal while unknowing. These are the revered ones. And you are one of those ones that prove that you've had your mind on the prize this whole time, and the group is merely expressing that. And in the big scheme of things in your world, it might be a part-time thing, you know, like a hobby kind of, you know, a hobby type thing. But in the consciousness realm, yeah, they can hear you listening to them, and that is quite a loud noise to them when they can hear you listening to consciousness realm. Karen, you're making a big noise, so bloody lovely. Okay, so that's it for now for this video, but I'm probably going to make another video about my Wellington trip, because that's the war. I'll tell you about that in the video, and it'll be a bit later today. And onward.